Good morning, everyone. Good morning. I'd like to call to order the meeting of the Lee County Board of County Commissioners for April 21st, 2020. I'd like to ask everyone to please rise. We'll begin this morning with an invocation, and then we'll turn to the Pledge of Allegiance. Heavenly Father, we come here together this morning to do work on behalf of the people of Lee County. Father, we thank you for the opportunity to serve them. We pray that you would give us wisdom as we deliberate over the many decisions in front of us today and guide our actions. And Lord, we just thank you for the people who are working in the hospitals right now to try and save lives and obviously help fight this disease. We pray you would protect them and keep them strong and help them to make good decisions as well. It's in Jesus' name we pray. Amen. Please join me in the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. You may be seated. Okay, this morning we're going to take things a little bit out of order from how they appear on the agenda. Governor DeSantis has asked me to join the task force calls. So we will, that call is at 10 o'clock today. So me and the county manager will be leaving around 10 o'clock, maybe a little bit earlier or later rather, depending on how the conversation's going, to make sure that we're on that call. Okay, so let's begin real quickly with the recap, just so that we know what's on the agenda and what's happening. We have 2 revisions and corrections on the recap. The revisions and corrections requested by the county attorney would be that we omit C2 and C3 from the agenda. Is that correct, Mr. County Attorney?
Yes, sir, Mr.
Okay.
Chairman.
Do I have a motion to omit C? Okay. We have a motion from Commissioner Pendergrass. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second from Commissioner Manning. All right. Any public comment on those 2 items? They revolve around the Lee County Government Leasing Corporation. Okay. So no public comment. Any discussion? Any objection? No objection. That motion carries. So those 2 are off the agenda. We've got requests from the county administration to move C10, C11, and C12 to the administrative agenda. Do I have that motion?
So moved.
Motion
Second.
from Commissioner Manning, second from Commissioner Sandelli. Do we have any public comment on, well, when we move those down, we'll take public comment at those. Do we have any objection to that, commissioners? No objection, motion carries unanimously. And then finally, we do have a couple corrections to make on item C20, which is the transit item. We will change the item summary to reflect that this will begin in the fiscal year 2021 and not in the current fiscal year. On item C21, we will change the amount in the motion of the item summary and background to reflect that the total estimated project cost for the park and ride facility will be $2.910 million and not $3.16 million. So the price is going down, which is fantastic. Do I have a motion to make those corrections?
Mr. Chair,
Okay. Motion from Commissioner Manning. Do I have a second real quick? And then second from Commissioner Pendergrass. You go ahead, Mr.
Mr. Chair, I apologize. One of your colleagues has asked we take C20 and C21 to the administrative agenda for a quick conversation.
Okay, so we'll move both to the administrative agenda as well.
Thank you.
Okay, any discussion or objection to making those corrections, though, as noted on the recap? Okay, seeing none, then motion carries unanimously. And we'll discuss both.
Does that include taking them to the administrative agenda?
Correct. They're being moved to the administrative agenda. And Commissioner Mann, you'll run that portion of the meeting.
Okay, I was going to pull those 2 items, but they'll
Perfect.
be talked about anyway. Thank you.
Yes. All right. All right, so we've got all that done, the housekeeping side of it done. Let's begin with our update from our county manager on where we stand with the COVID-19 response.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm going to go very quickly this morning because we have a lot to do in a short period of time, but the real short version here is as we have always discussed, there'll be a time to begin to reopen county services and some of our properties for recreation in particular. We would like to suggest to you that the time is right to open our hiking trails in the 2020 properties and all of our parks with the exception of Lakes Park. And we would like to do that tomorrow.
Okay, very good. And so commissioners, do we have any discussion or questions for our county manager on that?
The exception of Lakes Park, Mr. Chairman, because
Dave?
Thank you, Roger. Mr. Chair.
The reason is we're looking at opening trails because that's the easiest thing to open and encourage the social distancing as well as follow CDC guidelines. Our goal would be to incorporate staff to continue to educate and post signs about social distancing. The trails typically allow for that social distancing, so it's much easier to open those and would be consistent with Collier County and Charlotte County. Both of those counties have their trails open at this time.
Excellent.
So, Mr. Chair, just one quick thing to add to the explanation. We, as you all have followed, so have we, all of the data relative to this COVID-19 event, and in conversation with Lee Health and others in the governor's office, it appears as though it's just about time for us to have a serious conversation about opening some of the other or lifting some of the other restrictions, including, opening parks and beaches in the not too distant future. So we're preparing that conversation now, and that I think is going to be followed very quickly by, phased lifting of restrictions on businesses as well.
Okay, very good. So if I understand, the recommendation of the staff is to basically open our walking trails and our parks and preserves that have walking trails to walking only. If I understand correctly, you'll leave the playgrounds closed, the pavilions would be closed still, but basically the parks would be allowed for walking, correct?
Mr. Chair, yes, we would allow hiking, biking. Some of those have horse trails, so you're allowed to do horse trails as well. Those are 10 general parks with trails, large parks with trails, as well as 13 2020 preserves with large trails on them as well.
Okay, excellent. Do we have anybody who wishes to make a motion for the staff recommendation? Motion from Commissioner Manning, second from Commissioner Pendergrass. All right, Commissioner Pendergrass, go ahead.
Dave, how many, that consists of about 23 different parks? Between
Yes.
the 2020 and the regular parks? 23,
Yes.
everything except Lakes Park at this time?
Correct.
And Lakes Park will be looking at daily or weekly based upon the changes around us, correct?
Lakes Park and the parks that surround our large rec centers are not included in this motion.
Okay.
Okay. And what would you need to see in order to open Lakes Park? Like, what are we looking for on that?
Commissioners, I think a couple things. We want to continue to monitor the data and also pay close attention to CDC guidance. As you know, the President through the CDC issued Reopening America Again document late last week, and the Governor's Task Force that you're part of meets every day this week with recommendations to his executive committee on Friday. And I think based on a combination of the hard data and those conversations, then I think by the end of the week, we will be prepared to make some decisions.
Excellent. Okay, very good. All right, so Commissioners, do we have any questions before I take public comment on this item?
Mr. Chairman, I just want to, I think there's an opportunity for this action to be misunderstood, and I appreciate your clarification already. But I want to make certain that people being admitted to these trails in our parks and 2020 areas will be bound by the strictest rules of the CDC. Was that clear? As far as crowds gathering or 6 feet apart and everything we've come to love and
Yes, sir. It'll be
Bye-bye,
subject to
your
proper
lady.
social distancing, crowds no greater than 10.
And
so I just don't want this to be mistaken as a carte blanche reopening of all the parks. That is not what we're doing. This is for exercise, for hiking, for jogging,
correct.
Yes, sir.
and horses and horse trails.
Yes, sir.
And the horses will wear masks. Or same rules apply to horse riders.
And we'll have all of our park rangers out to help educate people and remind them of proper behavior.
Right. So we'll have staff and park rangers out there to monitor the activity and break up anything that they see that doesn't match with the CDC guidelines. Then also, just because some folks may confuse this and want to know about beach parks. This is not beaches. This
That's
is not
correct.
beaches and not beach parks, correct?
That's correct.
Okay, not beaches, not beach parks.
And the one thing that really gives us some comfort in this decision-making right now is generally speaking, the public has responded very, very well to stay safe, stay healthy, social distancing, messaging. That's been going on, for 6 weeks. We've actually had probably better compliance than has been reported.
Oh, yeah.
And so right now, we think that based on data, that we're probably 55% of everyone who lives in Lee County is properly complying with the stay at home, stay safe order.
Very good. All right, at this time, I'd like to go ahead and take public comment on the motion that's on the floor, and that is about the parks specifically. Would you do me a favor and raise your hand if you'd like to speak in public comment on this item? Okay, we've got 3. Okay, let's go with the purple shirt real quick. Now to do public comment, if you'll come to the podium and just say your name before you begin speaking so we'll know who you are. And please try not to touch anything if you can, because a lot of people are going to be coming and using the same podium. That would be great. And it's going to be 3 minutes. There's a green light right at the top up here. There's a green light, a yellow light, and a red light. When the red light comes on, that's when it's time to finish. Thank you.
Okay, my name's Denise Eberly. I live in Alva.
Hi, Denise.
I've been here for 20 years. I'm glad to hear that you are going to open the parks and the 2020 preserves. I myself am a horseback rider and a horse owner, and so that is really what I came here for, to open up our parks and our preserves again. As far as the horse comment, no, my horse will not be wearing a mask. That's fine. But when we're on our horses, we're 6 feet apart naturally. And no, we don't make big parties and we don't do all that. So, your restrictions are fine, 10 per group or whatever. As far, what parks you're going to open up, are these the playgrounds, I'm wondering?
No playground.
No playgrounds. Okay, well, that I have a problem with, maybe opening up the small local playgrounds for the children. I have grandkids, they're stuck in the house, and yeah, they can go outside and play and stuff like that, but that's the worst thing for them. They don't have school right now, so they're not socializing with any other kids. The parents are stressed. Right now, they're just on computers all day long. You have to be able to get your kids out. They have to be able to go out and play. That's the healthiest thing you can do for adults and children, is get outside, get exercise, play, build muscle tone, whatever is involved in that. You can't just have kids stuck in the house all day. That's a big issue I have with not opening at least the small local parks. I'm not saying go out there and play baseball, have baseball games and their soccer games and everything, but let them go out and kick a ball. Let them go out and throw a ball. Let them, there's no problem with kids being together as long, they're throwing a ball to each other. They're 6 feet apart. They're kicking a ball. They're 6 feet apart. I don't think it's hard for parents to manage that. I understand big groups and stuff like that, but as far as kids just going out and playing, let them go out and play. I think it's horrible that they're just being locked up, no school, nothing. They're just being locked up in their homes, and it's bad enough they're already addicted to these computer games and everything like that. But this is just enforcing that. So that's all I have to say.
Thank you for your comments this morning.
Thank you.
All right, and raise your hand again. Who was our next speaker? How about in the black shirt? Okay, and then I'll come up over here next.
Donnie in the middle.
Morning.
So, I actually remove this a little bit here. My name's Dr. Denise Trafficante. I'm a local pharmacist and a community activist. As far as the parks reopening, there's been a huge underservice in this population, in this city, in this county, as far as your homeless. The homeless have now been trespassed on all public properties that they tend to rest at, sit at, where we go and try and feed them, because your services during this pandemic have severely hurt them. So with reopening, number one, as far as playgrounds, unless we're gonna come up from a healthcare perspective, unless you guys have a way of disinfecting these playgrounds on a routine basis, because every time a child is coughing on them, every time a parent is breathing on them every time we have social interaction from one person to the next. I mean, I'm not allowed to touch anything on this podium because somebody else will be coming to use this podium. So we already are seeing reports across the US, let alone across the world, of asymptomatic. We have issues with, you know, those type of situations, but then we're also going right back to our homeless population. We need a place where our homeless population can rest. We need a place where these people are actually treated like human beings. We don't have any way to give them sanitary utilities as far as going to the bathroom, as far as showering on a daily basis. There's been talk about things opening up once or twice a week. I would love any one of you to only shower once or twice a week, sitting in air conditioning. But unfortunately, these parks being open to walking only bicycles and horses, we once again are looking past the most vulnerable population that we have. And I don't think that that is something we should take lightly. I think that is something that should absolutely be considered when you're talking about opening up parks, because these people don't have a shelter. Unless you can give me an address in which I can tell them, don't go to the parks because you can only walk, bicycle, and ride horses. Go to this shelter, go to this pavilion, go to this location, because this is the address that will allow you to be a human being without being harassed by the police. Now, we have a far greater issue than worrying about, you know, giving our children an alternative to playing in their own yard. At least they have something they can call their own yard. These people don't, and we need to consider that when we're talking about our parks.
Thank you very much for your comments. Okay. So, folks, typically I outline the rules for the public comment. We usually try not to boo or hiss because that would be really rude. And we also try not to clap too because, you know, again, we don't want to take any actions that might intimidate somebody else who has a different point of view. So if you could, I understand the applause for that one, but let's try not to for future, okay? Thanks, guys. I appreciate you coming today. And we want to make sure everybody gets a chance to be heard. The lady on the end over there. I think she can squeeze through here.
Yeah, just kick the lawyer out of the way there. Come on.
You can do it once, and he may respond.
Hi,
Morning.
how are you? Well, good morning. I can only talk to y'all from the tablet of my heart. Mr. Pendergrass, I know you. Mr. Mann, I know you. I'm here on behalf of the homeless, as was this young lady. And the park situation, probably crazy for saying this to all of you, but what I feel needs to happen from dealing with them for the last 17 years, and I usually don't get into the politics of all this stuff, I just do what I do from my heart. I would like to see y'all allow us, even myself personally, I would take responsibility to oversee it and man it and bring in the volunteers that are needed to man it. One area, be it under the pavilions by the parking lot of Centennial Park, maybe in the stadium that's empty and unutilized. I know you guys have plans to sell it, but at this point, can we just open it for emergency services? And maybe us as secular groups, ministries, volunteers, different people, we could collectively come together and order in some type of order where we would all be safe as volunteers and our homeless would be safe, and they'd have a place where they could set up temporarily, not permanently, and just be taken care of, their needs daily. I would go ahead and oversee it for you, if need be, for free, obviously, because that's what I do. And I don't know, I just think there's a solution. I think we can resolve it right now and just contain it to one area, and anybody that's not decent and in order and they can't follow the rules, they just can't be there. It's just that simple. And that's the way I operate my ministry all these years, and I've always done that with very little help from anybody, but different groups and different youth groups, secular groups, restaurants, people are feeding, people are trying to supply needs, and it's all well and good. And the fact is, it needs one location where it can be contained and the need could be met on a greater level. Because you could put in simple little shower booths and toilets and everybody else would man it. It wouldn't cost the city anything to open the doors. What's it gonna cost them? A couple porta potties and porta showers, that's it. And I know my time's running out and there's a lot more I need to say about it, but you really need to seriously consider it like now, not yesterday, not like now, like it needs to happen. We can have volunteers like that man that thing.
I hear you.
From every walk of life. So,
Thanks.
I don't know. You know me, Frank.
Thank you for your comments this morning. And real quickly too, just for everybody to understand, so we're gonna have multiple opportunities for public comment today, multiple times to speak. So this time to speak today is really just on the motion in front of us about the parks. To get into some of the deeper issues about like the homeless and the shelter idea, that would be a good idea to talk about at the time in the meeting where we call it public presentation of matters by citizens. So that's going to come after we get done with the specific motion that's in front of us. But right now, the public comment we're looking for right now is just on the specific motion in front of us, which is about the trails and the parks. And then we can talk more about the other sheltering type things. There's time for public comment about that after we get done with this item, if that's okay. Does everybody get that? Okay, good.
Chairman.
Yes, sir.
If I could also point out too, for the people in the audience, this motion before us today is for the 23 county parks. So like Centennial Park, Lions Park, the Lafayette Park, the parks within the city of Fort Myers, downtown, or anywhere in Cape Coral, those parks are not included. This motion is only for the county parks without inside the county jurisdiction. So none of the parks you're referring to, City of Palms, downtown, any of those parks is not part of this motion at all.
You know, and real quickly, Commissioner, you're in law or formerly law enforcement. Do you have any insight into the trespassing side of that? What happened there?
Yeah, if the law enforcement agency for whatever jurisdiction is in has signs posted, law enforcement is usually instructed by the jurisdiction to, if it's posted, if there's someone on the property not allowed to be there, they would trespass them under state statute for that. That would be a trespass warning, and if they would leave upon that, then if they return, they could be arrested for returning. And that's the state statute across the state.
But that wasn't a commissioner's decision.
No, it's a state law, and also jurisdictions like the city of Fort Myers or the city of Cape Coral within the jurisdiction of the county.
Thanks. All right, raise your hand again on the specific motion then about the parks, if you want to talk about just specifically the parks motion. Okay, I've got two back here. Let's go with you first, and then I'll go with you second, and then I'll get you third. Okay. Morning.
Hi, Don Overholzer for the record. I just wanted to ask if the staff of the county would consider looking at something I did at my park in the city for 3 weeks until the governor's order came down. It does involve the baseball parks or the sports parks, maybe soccer parks or whatever. When the initial shutdown came, when we had to close down our program, I looked for a way that we could get families out to the complex without jeopardizing or spreading the disease. So I came up with a plan that I ran by the mayor to where we would take each one of our fields, and I was responsible for doing it, but we would have families, no matter where they lived, call my number, reserve an hour's time on one of the fields, but it was only with members of their own family. They were not allowed to bring guests or relatives or friends or anybody, just people who resided in their own home. So in other words, they could come out for an hour at the park and do whatever they like. It might be baseball or softball, which is what I run, but it could be soccer or football or any other activity, fly a kite, whatever they wanted to do. And there was never any chance of them crossing over because we would not schedule people to where they were coming in the same gate as people were going out the gate. We took great pleasure. I think that if the county would look at existing staff, every park has a staff member there, and I think without too much trouble, they could probably publish a list of phone numbers and allow families to call and make a reservation, but also, and during certain hours, obviously, but also have somebody there to monitor, to make sure, like I was. I was there 7 days a week for 3 weeks straight until we got shut down to make sure that we were abiding by CDC guidelines, and the closest anybody ever got to anyone was probably 1,000 feet. So I would just like, because I'm here, because I am at a city complex, but the city does basically what the county does, and so I would just like to see the county at least think about that, as an option, because there are a lot of kids who do not, or a lot of families who do not have yards, or small yards. There's thousands of people living in apartments, so This is just a place to give them kind of a backyard. Thank you.
Thanks, Mr. Overholser.
Thanks, Donnie.
So we'll get it reset. Sir, go ahead, come on up.
Morning.
Yeah.
My name is Valdemar Garay. I'm Puerto Rican, Latino. I have became a homeless for almost 2 years. I got a degree in AA science, and I have a large experience with in teaching. So I'm really strong in what I like, it health, you know. Since I've been a homeless here in the area of Fort Myers, we get a need to live in parks, in public places, or sleeping in your car until, you know, we finish this transitional time that we're going through in our lives, even though for health issues, family issues, people waiting on the insurance, disability, and that, we have a need to a way to survive and use bathrooms and take a shower. You know, I just want you to go back to our ABC about healthy family environment for each one of us. Since the public restrooms in parks are being closed down, it's okay. We know what's the problem. We know what's the circumstances. We understand that, but we're still a group of people that are living out there, and we had to use portables. But unfortunately, every time when I use a portable, I'm sorry, Holy Spirit, help me to speak this in love and truth, but these portables have been there for so long. They are full of fecal material. The chemicals are like right here, and the rest is up here. There is no toilet paper. There is no hand sanitizer for anybody. There is, you know what I mean? I'm saying that because public health is a concern for each one of the residents, not just in the state of Florida, but everywhere. Fort Myers, everywhere, according to the circumstances. But if we don't keep our area clean, if we don't keep our portables clean, people are going to start going their needs out there. So then we're going to have to face second consequences of shutting down all these places or areas where we can use, like the portables. One of them is E. coli, the other one is salmonella, the other one is parasites. We have vectors here in Florida because of the weather. We have mosquitoes, we have flies, we have bacteria and parasites that they grow really fast because it's humid and the environment. So,
Thank you, sir, very much.
thank you so much for listening.
Thank you. All right, and
Chair?
yes, go ahead.
I'm going to have someone talk with the gentleman to find out the location of those portables so we can investigate.
Very good. Okay, and then the gentleman over here, you wanted to talk about the parks and the walking trails? Okay. And then you as well afterwards on the parks and the walking trails? Okay. Morning.
Morning. Hi, I'm Jay Burns, a.k.a. Rambo. I've been homeless for 41 years, and I'd like to complain about the bathrooms also. It does really help us homeless, but they're not getting cleaned proper. There's a couple down by Lions Park that just dropped out 2 days ago. They're already full. Flies are coming out of them, going in through the top of them and coming out the inside of them. And the trash also is not getting emptied. And particularly, the trash has ended up all over the ground. I've been picking up trash for the last 2 weeks. I think the porta toilets are a really good idea, but there's got to be a way to sanctionize them. Keep them clean, and some of them you don't even want to go in. I mean, it's kind of monotonous. And it's tough enough living on the streets. I do this because I can. I don't do it because I have to. I want to be homeless. It doesn't bother me. I've been doing it for a long time. I'm a professional hobo. I've been 9 times around the United States. I've never seen anything like this, except for Florida, since I moved out to Florida. And I just wanted to let you be aware of that I think the porta toilet is a great idea. And the parks are closed. It's pretty terrible for the kids, I think, also. But that's about all I have to say.
Thank you for your comments this
You're
morning.
welcome.
Okay, and then finally, yeah.
Hello. I originally did come to speak about homelessness, and I will respectfully wait till the end to do that. But I did want to make a comment about parks. I have grandchildren as well, and I would definitely not like to see any playgrounds opened at this time unless there's somebody that's going to be standing there disinfecting the playground equipment every time a child goes on it. That would be the worst possible thing to do at this point in time, and as far as, in my opinion. And I was a nurse for 25 years and specialized in pediatrics. And I just don't think that's a great idea. Walking trails, fine. Hiking, whatever, but no playgrounds.
Thank you for your comments.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay. We'll only get one crack at it. Sorry about that. I'm just tired of children being treated as jerks. Well, I hear you, ma'am. Real quick, Bruce, right? And then, did you want to speak on the trails? The baseball parks are not included in this, right? Not the baseball diamonds. This is about walking trails. So thank you. Yeah, go ahead, sir.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, Commissioners. My name is Bruce Thomas. I'm an 18-month taxpayer of Fort Myers. I love Fort Myers and its people, and that's why I took the time to drive down here today. I'm going to give you a very short, abbreviated version of my prepared comments, and I'll turn this into the clerk. We've been under the governor's shelter-in-place order since April 1st. As a resident of this great county, I believe it is time for this board to start consideration of opening our beautiful parks, our swimming pools, tennis, pickleball courts, to name a few. As elected officials, you have the serious responsibility of weighing public health and the general welfare, happiness, and livelihood of the people of this county. I do have recommendations in my prepared remarks. I'll submit that in writing to the clerk and just end my comment by saying, again, Lee County is a county of almost 760,000 people. We need to reopen our beautiful parks. We need to do it safely. I just heard the previous nurse's comments on safety and sanitizing. I respect that. We need to open our wonderful public swimming pools and our public tennis courts, pickleball courts, and eventually down the line, possibly in mid-May, when the CDC data comes out, possibly think about the baseball diamonds also. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments this morning. Okay, so on the parks, last call, anybody else want to speak on just the walking trails and the parks part? Okay, I seen, okay, last one, go for it.
I think that the park.
If you could say your name real quick too, and go ahead and start.
For the homeless.
Perfect, okay, go ahead and start the thing.
I think we have these parks that, instead of the porta johns, we have enough, especially Centennial Park, you have enough workers in and out of there on their, their carts driving around, emptying garbage and that, to have that open where it's more sanitary. These bathrooms, as a lot of people have said, are trash. You got stuff thrown in them, they're filled up too fast, and you want to be sanitary. And a lot of times the little water pump doesn't work. You got one that doesn't have, it's just a regular outhouse, so it isn't sanitary for the people to utilize. And the gathering thing, Centennial Park is huge, as the parks that you could, for us that go around feeding people and helping people, they need to be open where they're utilized. Or, as the Denise had said, give us a place where people can go safely. That stadium has got a grill. It could be utilized to food, feed people. You have bathroom, you have showers. That could be really utilized for the homeless population. And also, instead of tearing it down, that's a waste of taxpayers' dollars. It should be utilized to bring in revenue for the city and the nonprofits. Thank you.
Thanks for your comment this morning. Okay, Real quickly,
A question before you call for a vote real quick on the issue, on the motion. The motion for the 23 county parks we're talking about would also include the restrooms or dog parks for the facilities within the county, not the city parks, but the county that we're voting on today. Restrooms or dog parks?
It does not include restrooms. It's impossible to keep them clean properly.
Just want to make sure. Thank you.
would you like to speak in public comment? Well, we don't really do the question, we don't, yeah, but if you want to come and speak, you're welcome to, yeah.
Also, Mr. Chair, while we're waiting for the speaker, just to clarify, Centennial Park is not a property owned by Lee County government. That is a city-owned park.
So say that again louder. So Centennial Park, we don't own Centennial Park. We couldn't open it even if we wanted to. Just so everybody knows that. We don't do
It
Centennial.
would be property of the city of Fort Myers and
Lions Park.
at Lions Park as well. And if they so choose to
don't
open
own
those
Lions Park
restroom
either?
facilities, they can certainly do that.
Okay, we don't own Lions Park either. Okay, if you'll start the timer, and if you'll start by saying your name for the
Yes,
record.
my name is Jasmine Phillips Miller, J.D.
Okay.
Now, I just have one question regarding the park. Why do we have portable potties and not real restrooms in the park manned by cleaners daily? Why do we have these potties that we know they don't do any work? They do not, no cedar in Spanish. They don't make any sense. Why do we have a potty that's gonna stink up, that's gonna fill up, and not a real bathroom? And what, from my understanding, they're bathrooms, but they're closed. And someone told me they're closed because you don't want the homeless to use them.
Thank you for your comments. So we'll ask that question for you. So, Mr. County Manager?
Yeah, I'm sorry, Mr. Chair, I didn't get that last question, please.
The question was about, again, the restrooms and the challenges that, why the real restrooms are not open and why the strategy on the porta-johns?
So the normal restroom's not open because of social distancing, and it's really impossible for us to wash those restrooms after every use. We just can't do it. We have partnered with the city to put out some of the porta-johns in the city parks, but that is, again, those are in the city, and that is, the maintenance of those is their responsibility.
And
now we're happy to follow up and check on the conditions, and we'll work with the city. But just to be clear, those are City of Fort Myers
porta-johns
properties.
or even the City of Fort Myers
Yes, sir.
that did those?
We're helping with it, and we're happy to go take a look to see how they're doing. But again, those are in the city limits.
My understanding was you all were going to reach out to the City of Fort Myers about sanitation stations as well. Do you have an update on the sanitation stations?
We do. Mark, can you help us out, please?
Good morning, Commissioners. Yeah, just a quick update. Sanitation stations were also deployed in partnership with the City of Fort Myers and the Homeless Coalition. So those are in the same locations that the bathrooms are. Bathrooms have been put out by a vendor, and they're responsible for the cleanliness of those bathrooms, and they've been cleaned twice daily. We're going to follow up with the vendors to see if the frequency is adequate, and also work with the City of Fort Myers. We did have Roger Mercado, our Director of Human and Veteran Services, go out and inspect some of these bathrooms today and yesterday, and he didn't find any that were not working. He did find a few that were needing some cleaning, but for the most part, that's a vendor providing that service, and we'll look into the frequency of those cleanings and make sure it's adequate.
Okay. Commissioners, any other questions at this point for our staff? No? Okay. Thanks, Mr. Moore.
Thank you, Mark.
Appreciate it. Okay, Commissioners, any further discussion on the motion in front of us about the trails? No discussion on the trails? We're sorry, I'm sorry, sir. We closed the public comment on this one at this time, but there will be time to comment at the end of the meeting. Okay, so no further discussion on the trails, then I'll go ahead and call the question. Does anybody object to the motion that's on the floor? All right, seeing none, then the motion carries unanimously. And Mr. County Manager, those will open, when do you?
Tomorrow.
Tomorrow, okay.
Tomorrow morning.
Very good. All right, thank you very much. And will we put a list on our website so that people can see exactly where to go?
Yes, sir, we'll have that this afternoon.
Excellent. And then obviously all of the CDC guidelines apply at the ones that we list on our website that you can go to. Excellent. Okay, very good. All right, next on the agenda is Well, does that conclude your county manager update in relation to the COVID-19 response?
Yes, sir.
It does. Okay, very good. So again, as I mentioned at the end of the meeting, we'll have an opportunity to speak in public comment on anything that's on your mind. But that gets us through that immediate portion today. Let me move to our county attorney. You have 2 states of local emergency that I want to discuss before I exit the meeting.
Yes, sir.
Go ahead.
Chairman. Thank you. The first is the 5th extension of the state of local emergency dealing with the county's response to the COVID-19 crisis. We would respectfully request an extension for an additional 7-day period.
So the requested motion is to extend the current state of local emergency related to COVID-19. We have motion for approval from Commissioner Manning and a second from Commissioner Mann. Do we have any discussion or questions for our staff? Do we have anybody who wishes to speak in public comment on the state of local emergency extension? No? Okay, I'll close public comment then. Any objections to that motion? No objections, that motion carries unanimously. And you have one more?
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman. Our next item is a resolution to extend the existing burn ban that prohibits open burning during this time of drought throughout Lee County.
Moved.
Okay, so we have a motion from Commissioner Manning to extend the state of local emergency on the burn ban. Do we have a second? Do we have a second on that? Second from Commissioner Pendergrass? Okay. Do we have anybody who wishes to speak in public comment on the burn ban, state of local emergency? Okay, I'll close public comment. Any discussion? Are there any objections? No objections, that motion carries unanimously. Okay, that should take us to, Mr. Vice Chairman, that should take us to the consent agenda. Just a reminder on our recap that we did pull items C10, C11, C12, C20, and C21 to move to the administrative agenda. And I'm going to go ahead and do the ceremonial handoff to you at this point, Mr. Vice Chairman. And I'm going to go get on the governor's task force call and really take a lot of the feedback that we heard this morning from this meeting, along with folks, we're getting tons of emails from folks that are ready to open things up. And we hear you. We really do. And I can tell you we're very eager to get back to work too. And I can tell you that we've got to do it in a phased way and in a safe way. And I think that's what the governor and his task force are focused on. And I'm going to go do my part to give your input to that group. So thank you very much, folks.
Thank you. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Frank Mann. I am serving as the Vice Chair of the Lee County Commission during this year. And when in the chairman's absence, that's when the vice chair is called upon to step in. We will now return to the consent items, and correct me if I'm wrong, since we're doing things a little out of order this morning, largely at the call of the chair. But we are back on the consent agenda, and I would ask if there are items to be pulled by any commissioner. Commissioner? Commissioner?
No. None.
Commissioner? And I have none. So are the members of the public have an item on the consent agenda that they would like to speak to? Hearing none, do I hear a motion to approve the consent agenda? Motion by Manning, second by Pendergrast. Discussion, is there objection to that? Consider it passed unanimously. And that takes us to the administrative agenda. Mr. Assistant County Manager.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The environmental item is to award a contract for fertilizer education and outreach. This will allow us to, I apologize.
Which item is this, since we moved some around here?
This is the environmental item on administrative agenda, number 1. Okay. It's to award the contract for fertilizer and education and outreach. This approves an agreement with Dickinson and Associates to develop and enhance the fertilizer education outreach program. The program consists of media, TV advertising, youth outreach, direct marketing, and other outreach programs. This program allows us to achieve TMDL credit.
So moved. Second.
I have a motion on this administrative item. For those watching at home or in the audience here today, we have an ordinance that controls or suggests how we use fertilizer in the most expeditious manner in the county of Lee. It's been in effect, what, 3 or 4 years now, maybe more. But it doesn't do us any good if people don't understand that we have it, and this item addresses that, publicizing when and where to use fertilizers and how much, and if they're not carefully looked after by those of us using them, they end up in the ditches and in the drains and in the canals that go into exacerbating our blue-green algae issues that you read and hear so much about nowadays, and that's what this is all about. You did a good job. I don't know why I had to repeat it, but it took us a long time to adopt this ordinance, and Lee County was one of the first in the state to do it, and we're real proud of it, and we just want everybody to be a part of this team effort. So, is there further discussion on the motion? Yes, Commissioner Sandelli.
Comment. I mean, I fully support this. I mean, we are all looking for what each of us can do locally, and I think this is a very important part for the reasons that you said and the reason it was developed. So, this is something everybody can participate in and fully encourage it. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Further comment on the motion? Is Counselor?
Public input, Mr. Chairman.
I'm sorry, public. Is there any members of the public would like to comment on this fine motion? Hearing none, is there objection to the motion? Hearing none, show it adopted unanimously. Back to the county manager.
Thank you, Commissioner. The next item is to accept $1.7 million in continuum of care grant funds from HUD. I'd like to ask Mr. Mora to address that item, please.
Mr. Mora, you can do it from there, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Mr. Harner. Items 10 through 12, which were pulled and put on the administrative agenda, are real great examples of recurring grants that you, the board, have accepted in the past and distributed to the community through the Lee County Continuum of Care Program. You might know it as COC. Mr. Chair, a little bit about the COC. It's got a long history here in Lee County. It is led by the Human and Veteran Services team within the county, and they've been doing that for about 22 years. The Lee County Continuum of Care is comprised of local governments, obviously, agencies, advocates, and program users. And collectively, this group plans and implements programs to serve persons who are homeless or at risk of homelessness in Lee County. So they're basically the vehicle. So looking at some data in previous years, on average, we're exiting about 70 folks each month out of the program and servicing about 840 people per year. So I just wanted to put that as a primer before we talk about the different items here. Item number 10, which was pulled and put on the agenda item, is acceptance of those continuum of care funds. It's $1.8 million, basically. Mr. Harner shared that. That grant is from the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development. And again, they are intended to provide housing and services for persons who are experiencing homelessness. It is an annual competitive grant. It's a community-wide grant, and there is a process in which Human Veteran Services is the lead. When we accept this fund, we execute it through subrecipient contracts with several nonprofits, and those include the Salvation Army, Community Assisted and Supportive Living, Lee County Housing Development Corporation, Goodwill Industries, as well as Society of St. Vincent de Paul. So basically, these programs are looking at providing rapid rehousing, move-in and rental assistance, and supportive housing for individuals who have a severe and persistent mental illness. About $341,000 of this grant will be administered directly by the Human and Veteran Services, and they estimate approximately 536 households will be assisted with these particular funds. If it's okay, do you want me to go on to number 11?
Questions of Mr. Moore, Mr. Chairman, Mr.
Item.
Let's take these one at a time.
Okay. Yes, sir.
On item, any questions of our staff on this? I have a motion by Manning, a second by Sandelli. Further discussion, members of the public, on this item, on this specific motion, item 10 on our agenda. Step forward and announce yourself. Speak slowly when you talk into the microphone because there's some of us elderly that hear slowly.
Sure.
Thank you.
My name is Carrie Constantine. I'm the co-founder of Blankets and Blessings, a local nonprofit organization.
Ms. Constantine, thank you for being with us.
I have some questions in regards to the continuum of care and the community block grants, because in the last fiscal year, $3 million.
Someone forgot to turn off their. I'll get with that person and make certain they stop. Hang up, quit calling me. I told you never to call me here. I'm sorry, Ms. Constantine.
Yeah, sure. In the last fiscal year, HUD reported that, or the Lee County reported that they received $3 million in community block grants from HUD, but according to the report card, they only helped 25 households with housing with that money through the community block grants. And the money coming in through the COC goes to agencies that we can never seem to get people on waiting lists, and the waiting lists are always full. And I think we really need to look into where the money's going. Are they really being used for program services, or are they disguised as program services and they're going to overhead costs? So that's my concern.
Ms. Constantine, let me ask Mr. Mora to get with her after the meeting here and make certain she leaves here with a better understanding than she came with.
Yeah, sir, I got this directly from HUD, and it was reported from Lee County on what, how many households they actually helped.
He'll be able to help get you started in the right direction, and if you need to come back, we look forward to seeing you again. Thank you for all you do. Are there others who want to speak to this specific motion? Definitely. Please announce yourself slowly.
My name's Keith Campbell.
Say it again, that was fast.
My name is Keith Campbell. I have a couple of nonprofits in the area, and I also advocate for a lot of the other stuff. The same topic. $3 million came into this county last year. It went to places we don't even know where it is. Our veteran services and human services are proud that they've created 65 beds, but they're not telling you the 65 beds was made over 10 years. When you're getting $4 million a year and you're giving them another $1.8 million a year, we should be creating a hell of a lot more than 6.5 beds a year. And what I'm looking for is, you guys are voting on this, you guys need to start holding these other nonprofits accountable. Salvation Army is already out of funds. They're not helping these homeless people right now. Same thing with Goodwill. You're putting them in porta potties that are unsanitary, but you don't want to keep open the bathrooms because of the same reason that they're unsanitary. The county needs to step up and override the city. Money like this coming into our county, give it to us nonprofits, and you're going to see a hell of a lot better shift than what the county is doing with human services, veteran services, and the homeless population. Because where this money is going, that report she just showed, it helped 25 people last year and 65 beds in 10 years. That's sad. Our population's grown by the hundreds by the day, and we're only making 6.5 beds. We might as well just open up prisons and turn them into the homeless shelters. It'd be a lot cheaper than giving these people $4 million. I think it's just you guys' responsibility to start tightening up the stuff going on here and find out what these people are doing with their money. I think a lot of it's going to salaries. It's not going to where it needs to go. That's all I got to say.
Let me ask staff, do you have any general response to the points? Because both the previous speakers seem to speak to the fact that there's a lot of money we're talking about. You can sit down. You've done very well. Thank you. Both, you can sit down too. We'll perhaps recognize you later. Both speakers made the same point that there's a lot of money here and it doesn't seem to be clear as to how it's being spent. Can you give us some general reaction to their concern?
Thank you, Mr. Mann. I'm uncomfortable really talking in any detail without having the reports in front of me right here at this meeting. However, there are reports that we obviously report back to HUD in regards to how we're spending this money. There are administrative costs, obviously, on any grant and management of a grant, so there is probably a portion of it that is going to salaries. I can't speak to that directly right now. What I think the best course of action is to work with Human Veteran Services, pull the report, put together an executive summary for the board so that they can review.
Well, we would look forward to that. That's good for you, Mr. Hartner.
Yes, Commissioner, that's exactly what I would recommend, is to allow us to go back and look at these reports, work with Human and Veteran Services and some of our partners as well, and be able to provide that information to the board, detailed information. And
provide that same information to the two speakers.
Correct. We will provide that. We will get them right after this meeting and make sure we provide the information.
Okay, Chairman.
Rest assured, anybody paying attention this morning to this, that there's a thorough audit process. We don't just bring in millions of dollars in federal grants or state grants or private grants to partner with folks in the mission that we try to accomplish here without substantial oversight. And that's what we'll try to get more details. We generally, at our regular commission meetings, are not called upon to provide that level of detail, but it is always available to the citizens of this county and will always be. So we will be doing a follow-up on that. And Mr. Mora, we'll look to you for your outstanding work in that regard. Commissioners, I forgot where we are.
Sir, Chairman, if we could just stay in order with the public speaking so we can continue the meeting, and I think we had some more public speakers on this one item before we call for a vote.
Do we have a motion yet? Have a call from a?
Yes, we have a motion, we have a second, we call for public input.
It's public input now. Now you, yes ma'am, now you're going to announce yourself clearly and slowly.
Thank you. Bonnie Myers, concerned citizen.
Hey, Bonnie.
I see that there's grants going to the triage center, and this is an urgent situation. My understanding right now from the people I know that are out there, they have been told for the past month, we're going to empty it out this Friday. We're going to make you leave in 2 weeks. We're going to make you leave on May 1st. Now it's this coming Friday. People that have income that has been there for a while are now going to be put up in apartments for 3 months. In 3 months, they're going to be homeless again because they're not able to handle their finances. People that have no finances, they're being told that they're going to have to leave and then come back in a week. So if all this money's going there, somebody really needs to check and find out what's going on, because that's a waste of money. You're going to put people up that cannot save money while they're at triage for 3 months and pay all their bills. In 3 months, they're going to be evicted, or they're going to be on the streets. And then the people that don't have money, you're telling them, you got to go back and be homeless, and then come back in a week and we'll help you again? There's something wrong with that, especially if they're getting all that money. And that's an urgent situation. We're talking about this Friday, unless they've changed their mind again. And you can't mess with people. Those are people that have mental illness, addictions, and so on, and you're telling them this Friday, 2 weeks from now, a month from now, oh no, this Friday? That's cruel. That's really cruel. And they're getting all this money? Mm-mm. Y'all need to check into it.
Ms. Myers, thank you. Do you want to speak to this specific motion on item 11 on our agenda?
Item 10.
10, I'm sorry, we're still on 10. She made reference to 11, that's what threw me off of the Bob James. The continuum of care grant funds from HUD, $1,790,000, yes, sir. And you're going to announce your name clearly.
Willie Joe Shotwell, I'm a human needs advocate. On what was said about the triage center, it is definitely...
I'll tell you what, I'm going to let you come back on the next item before us, because we're not on the triage center right now.
Okay, Willie.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Other people that would like to speak to the grant funds from HUD of $1,790,000.
Accepts grants, yeah. It's the first one.
The 1.7, we're on item 10. A motion, and we're taking public input. Yes, sir, with your hands up in the black shirt. You'll be next, ma'am.
Dr. Denise Trafficante, PharmD, local pharmacist and community activist. I just wanted to mention that there's got to be some way, dealing with the continuum of care grant funds from HUD, that we are actually looking to make sure that all of the Florida statutes are actually being met regarding Florida Statute 420.624, Local Homeless Assistance Continuum of Care. And in there, on item 7, components of continuum of care plan should include, you go down to item J, well actually, I'm sorry, let me back up, let's go to item B, emergency shelter in order to provide a safe, decent alternative to living in the streets. That has been an ultimate and utter failure that has definitely been seen in these last 6 weeks. So as we're looking at accepting more money At the tone of the millions of dollars that previous speakers have spoken about, we need to look at exactly what continuum of care is actually being provided, whether the city or the county wants to point the finger as to who got the money, who spent the money, whose salaries were paid, weren't paid. These services are not being provided. They are not living up to the Florida statute of emergency shelter. We go on to transitional housing, supportive services, permanent supportive housing, rapid rehousing, permanent housing, linkage and referral mechanisms among all components to facilitate the movement of individuals and families towards permanent housing and self-sufficiency. In these last 6 weeks, as an advocate working with other nonprofits that are here in this room today and have brought a lot of these people for you to look into their eyes and actually see that they are human beings that live and breathe within the same county that you are supposed to be caring for, we have seen somebody who was in rapid rehousing and was given no other help. They didn't even realize the other services that were needed to make this person with a child self-sufficient. So after that time ran out of rapid rehousing, she was left with no plan, no tools in her toolbox to move forward. So when we're looking at continuum of care grants, we need to start taking a report card. Teachers have to fill out a report card as far as how their students pass on to the next level to decide whether or not the school board will keep them on. Why do we keep giving grants? Why do we keep expending money? And these services, A, are not being provided, B, not being created, and C, are failing miserably.
Thank you for your additional input at this time. Yes, ma'am. And those questions that she brought forward are part of the review and the follow-up that staff's going to be providing. Yes, ma'am, your name again, please.
Jasmine Phillips Miller, JD. I am homeless. I'm also a homeless advocate. And I want to tell you greetings from our God Jehovah. He's looking on us, and he loves the homeless. They are his children. I speak to you now from God. You must help the homeless. They're hurting. Number one, I am proposing to you something important today. In order for you to fix the homeless plight, you have to walk in the shoes of a homeless. Yes, the only person who can fix the homeless situation are homeless advocates who themselves are homeless. So far, I can tell you in our group, there are about 10 of us. It's myself, Jasmine Miller, number 2, Mr. Willie Joe, and there are many others. There's another man over there, Mr. Frank. These are the people, the movers and shakers of the homeless. I invite you leaders today to invite us as your advisors and put us in a small office downtown close to you, and you will speak to us and we will educate you how to fix the homeless. The Lord made me homeless. I was a lawyer. He made me homeless for me to open my eyes to what you're doing to the homeless brothers and sisters. Will you please listen to us? The money you gave to HUD is a little bit. It's a drop in the bucket. What you need are ideas from us. I invite you to speak to us. We will teach you how to fix the homeless. And I want Salvation Army to return the money that they took from the homeless people. They're not doing anything. They are the poster child of the homeless. They do not know how to fix the homeless plight. The churches who have abandoned us also need to bring the money back because they abandoned us recently.
And your passion, but
thank you very much.
You to stick to the subject we're on.
I have stuck to the subject.
Thank you very much.
Could you please invite us to help you?
Speaking on item 10, that's what you'd like to do? Come back and reintroduce yourself.
My name is Suzette Sanborn. I have been trying to get assistance since October of last year for homelessness. In October, I was living in a hotel. When prices went up because of season, by the time January rolled around, I could no longer pay to stay. Been on the streets since January. Called Human Services and everywhere else that they advised me to call, St. Vincent de Paul, Salvation Army, Catholic Charities. I have pages and pages of names and numbers that I called and got nothing but the runaround and no answers and no help. I am finally received help this week from nonprofits and regular citizens, private citizens giving donations, and nonprofits that reached out to me. That is the only way that I have gotten help, and I am now going to have a home today. Human Services has done nothing for me. None of these other agencies did anything for me, and I am disabled, severely physically disabled. And I have a son who is also disabled with autism, and we have been on the streets begging for help and trying to go through all the channels. And no one has listened, and nobody helped me until a news reporter listened to me, put my story out there, and nonprofits and private citizens stepped forward to help us. I served my community. I was a helper. I was a nurse. I've given to my community. And when I needed help, there was no help for me through this agency. Nobody has stepped up to help me, and I went through every channel, and I have had a case manager that was assigned to me through CCMI, where Human Services referred me to, and still had no help, no housing whatsoever. The only assistance I ever got was through private citizens that gave me donations.
I want to thank you, Ms. Sanborn, for your willingness to personally share with us your story and the experience you've had, because I can assure you there's nobody on this commission wants you to have to go through the misery you went through to ultimately get service from a private sector. We're glad they're out there and available to help.
If it weren't for them, I was ready to give up on my life. That's how desperately bad it was. My health was deteriorating.
Thank you for sharing your story with us this morning. To me, it's one that I will take to heart, and we will be working with staff to respond and react to this kind of a story. What I really appreciate is your willingness to publicly address us on things that are very painful to your heart.
For me, it's very hard for me to get up here and do this.
Well,
but I'm doing it.
No, it is.
Not just for myself, but on behalf of all the rest of the homeless people.
Now we need to hear from some other folks yet still. Thank you very much, Ms. Sanborn. Others on this item? Going to come back? And share with us slowly your lovely name once again.
I am Lucy, Mama Lou.
But you got to say it louder.
Lucy, Mama Lou, North Fort Myers.
Mama Lou.
Yes, sir. Only way I know how to be. So, in reference to what you just said, Suzette, there's a lot of Suzettes out there, and I deal with them all the time. I was invited into a meeting with housing years ago, and I went, and again, I don't always do the politic end of things because I'm too busy out there just doing. And I believe it takes away from our time helping the people we're helping when we're doing these kind of things, and I know they need to be done, however, but it takes away from the cause that you're promoting to help. We have put in the last 4 or 5 months, Carrie, how many people? 5 families into housing where we've paid their security, paid their continuation of rent to get them on their feet, helped them make sure they were job ready, counseling, life coaching, whatever we can do. It's just a small little thing, but it takes a whole big army of people. And I was told years ago that if the people were could meet the criteria, they'd be able to receive rapid rehousing. I have never been able, as a care provider in our community, to tap into rapid rehousing for any of my clients, ever, ever, ever. Is there anybody else in the same boat? I have never been able to tap into the rapid rehousing end of it. I don't know where the ball drops or what happens along the way, but I have never been able to do that, nor have I ever been able to get anybody. I love the Salvation Army, and I'm not putting anybody down. I've never been able to get anybody in there either. It's like there's no room at the inn, never, ever. No matter where you call. And triage, it's almost, that's a whole nother subject, but you go from, they end up Baker Acted, then they end up in triage, or they get a bed through the hospital emergency room. It's a sick cycle. And we try to put them and place them. Our pockets are only so deep. And it's people like yourself and myself that are saying, okay, here, I'll donate $100 toward this security deposit. I'll buy them a bed at Costco. You know, I'll go pick up the keys for the unit. I'll go feed them in the park. It's just a sick cycle, and it just doesn't ever stop. There's nothing we can tap into as agencies to receive the help, to give it to those. And I've reached out a million times, never gotten a response, ever. And I tell you that on my word, and I mean that as a woman and a person in the community that cares about our people. I have never had one person say, hey, Miss Lucy, we got a place for so-and-so. They're a vet, they're homeless, they're this, they're that. I know my time's up, but that's a serious issue. It really is.
Lucy, thank you for all.
You're welcome.
Thank you so much. Thank you for caring and being here this morning. Others would like to speak on item 10 before us now. Yes, sir. Front and center.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I just want to thank you to all the authorities in Lee County.
Your name one more time.
My name is Valdemar Garay. I just want to thank you for all the hard work that you guys do in this area in Lee County, Fort Myers area. I lived 12 years in Tampa, and before that, I spent 30 years in Los Angeles, where there is no help available for the homeless community. I'm saying that because you never lived your life until you are in those shoes, you know, until you have the experience of the people that are living on the streets. I really appreciate all your hard work, your sacrifice, your time, your efforts, trying to help all this community in the area, because in Tampa, which is Hillsborough County, they don't offer any kind of help for the homeless. I just want to thank you also in public for all those who are listening here in the room and online or on TV, for all the nonprofit organizations like Salvation Army, Fort Myers Rescue Mission, Triage, and some other private institutions that they work with people with addictions, like Highway Facilities and all that. I think you guys are doing a great job. I think it's been a blessing to be here because I'm not dying of starvation. There are places that we can go eat every day. There are people out there that doesn't have any kind of income like myself. And there is a place that we can go take a shower. There is a place that we can go use bathroom. That's a great benefit for each one of these residents in the Lee County. I just want to thank you for all of you guys for all the effort, but at the same time I see the challenges that you have in front of you, because each one of the homeless community has different situations and problems, you know. I will encourage to the nonprofit organization like churches that you guys, you are the authority, work with church. I think it's time for the Church of God to open their hearts and their homes to brothers and sisters, like the lady said. I don't have to be looking for your help, gentlemen. I don't have to be looking for the county or the city when I have a church. And when the Word of God says in 1 Peter, I'm going to finish with this. when the Lord of God says, how is that possible that you love your brother and you don't help him when you are in deepest need? Thank you so much for listening.
Mil gracias. One last.
Good morning, gentlemen. My name is Karen Scott. I'm married to Bruce Scott, who's a county commissioner for the mosquito control, whose father also sat in these seats where you sit. This is human services, and these are the humans that you are failing. I am here because you've heard the stories. They're legitimate. What I would like to ask is which one of you personally is going to lead the task force to investigate where this money is going. I want a name. I want someone to tell me now, today, who I can call and sit with. Because we have the experience, we have the knowledge. I've been a nonprofit for only 3 years, I'm new, but I've been a foster parent for 18 years. I can tell you I have sent over 100 people who've never been helped by United Way, Goodwill. Only one was helped by Salvation Army, and they failed her in the long run, and she died of an overdose. Okay? I am here to ask, and I'm not going to leave this podium until I have a name of one of you and a phone number and a business card who can at least put together a task force to investigate where this money is going and why it is not going to the people it is supposed to be going to.
Terry, we've already directed our staff to perform what you're asking.
But we
get the details.
We understand that he is going to give those answers to you. But nowhere did you ever say that these answers and the information that we're seeking is going to come to us. And that's what we need. We need a task force. We need to establish someone from this room who can be the advocate, who can go back and share this information with these people. And so far, that's not been established. And I want to know who can be the task force leader. Is it going to be Mark?
Ultimately, and it will come back to the chairman and all of the commissioners here.
Okay,
Now, it would not be for us to choose from among you who you want to be the spokesman. I would, y'all seem to have an organization of sorts, so why don't you identify that person and then bring that back to the county chairman?
Okay. We can
Commission
absolutely
chairman.
do that, and you will be willing to work with us.
Of course.
I think there should be 2 or 3 on this task force from the different organizations and the different agencies, and we will gladly do that. We need the name of who we can contact.
There's 5 of them. See 'em right there? Yes.
Yes, Commissioner. We will, as you stated, Mark will be working with staff and our partners, and we will include some of our other partners, and we will work with you as well. Mark, the commissioners, or I'm the deputy county manager, we're happy to meet with you after this, get your name and information. We'll provide you our information.
Thank you.
And we'll include you or whoever you designate in your group
Are we happy
to
with
speak
that?
with.
Mr. Chairman, if I could, just stay a point of order. If we could get back on the agenda, we have an item before us, and we have the public speaker's time is up. We could move forward, please.
I think we've exhausted this item. So we are now back to the commission. We have a motion and a second. That's correct?
Yes, sir.
Is there further discussion by the commissioners?
Chairman, if I could, Dave, so basically the motion before us for item C10, or we have the choice either vote for it or vote against it. We vote against it. We lost that money. It would go to some other agencies within outside Lee County, correct?
Correct.
So we could lose the money. We just could vote against it and give the money to some other county, or we could accept the money and use it for current services being rendered to the residents of Lee County.
That's correct.
Great, thank you.
I just feel obligated to comment by way of thanking you folks this morning for your very personal, passionate input. We talk a lot here about the homeless and the forgotten, and we appropriate millions of dollars every year. But we have not had this level of direct input, for which I am profoundly grateful for your willingness to stand up here on some very difficult subjects and some very personal subjects. So please, on behalf of the commission, let me thank you for all of us for your input this morning. And this is one of those political promises, but Terry, we will follow up on this and give my best to your father-in-law, former county commissioner 35 years ago here, good friend of mine. So you guys got your hands full. Is there objection to the motion? Show it adopted without objection. Now, item 11, are we on that now?
Thank you, Commissioner. This is to approve the grant from Department of Children and Family Services for operations at the Bob Janes Triage Center. I'd like to ask Mark to provide additional information.
Back to you, Mr. Moore.
Thank you, sir. As Dave said, this is the acceptance of a grant from the Children and Families. It's for Bob Janes Triage Center. They also engage with the county in a sub-recipient contract. It's through the Salvation Army for operations at Bob Janes. This is a 3-year period. The total funding is $325,000 per year. That's an increase over the last duration. It was only $275,000 per year, so there's an increase we're seeing here. During fiscal year 2018-19, 987 individuals were served at the Triage Center. The grant program was created by Florida statute and is housed within the Department of Children and Families. Thus, that's where the grant is originated from. Lee County has been the recipient of the Criminal Justice Grant since 2008 and has been instrumental in assisting with staffing and operational costs to operate the Bob Janes Triage Center. It is a competitive grant process and it's contingent on the expansion of services, thus the increase in the funding. I did reach out to Mr. Mercado, if you don't mind, in regards to this program, checking on some of the reports that they are closing and they're not closing. As a matter of fact, the Director of Salvation Army shared that they actually added 3 new residents yesterday. This grant period will begin on May 1, so they will get this influx of funding beginning on that date.
So the dollars here, what are we looking at?
It's $325,000 per year, and it's a 3-year period for the grant.
All right, this may be a little unfair to you because you're relatively new in the position here with the county, but we've had this program since '08. Is that when we contracted with the Salvation Army?
Actually, that's when we first started receiving the grant, 2008.
And we had to fight for this grant year after year and go to Tallahassee hat in hand and beg and plead and threaten. But it seems to have smoothed out a little as far as the annual renewal.
I think that's accurate. We were originally told that we would not be a recipient for this 3-year period, but that obviously has changed, and we were granted the 3-year funding.
So this is the first of 3.
This coming year will be, beginning May 1, will be the first of the 3 years for this funding.
Beautiful. Commissioners, questions?
That was a lot of help from our state representative, Dane Eagle, and also Elizabeth Pinacoso from the Senate. They made sure that they helped us get this funding for the future. So thank you to their delegation for that.
Do I have a motion?
Move the item.
I'm sorry, is there a public input on this one on the Bob Janes Triage funding? Yes, ma'am, with your hand up in the back. Even if you've been here before, we need you to reintroduce yourself.
Bonnie Myers. When I spoke earlier, yes, it was a part of the continuum of care regarding them placing them into apartments and then letting it go. I do appreciate you looking or getting the information saying they're not closing. Is there going to be an oversight for them also? Because this has gone on last year. I literally was homeless last year. By the grace of God, I'm no longer. But I went to triage. I know what I'm talking about. It's not changed. They run it as a dictatorship, okay? The monies are going there, but somebody has to oversight this also. Because again, I know this firsthand. These people, whether it's closing or not, they're being told this on a regular basis. That is messing their minds up. There's got to be an answer to this. It's a good program. It really is. But it's not run correctly. And if y'all are giving them the money, then somebody needs to make sure they're doing their job. That's not fair. I mean, when you're homeless, and a lot of the people that have been homeless, the longer you're out there, by the grace of God, I was only out there for a little period, but the longer you're out there, it's hard to go into something like that and give up and listen, and you're told things, we're going to help you with this, we're going to help you with that. But in the same breath, you're telling them, you got to go, and they're going to get this money. So again, an oversight for that one too. They don't have the right to do this to people because you've checked into it, so obviously they're not closing. I can let these people know that I do know that are still there. that they're not going to be thrown out. But that's cruel, and they're getting the money. So again, will somebody oversight that? It's not a dictatorship. They don't have the right to do this to the people, and that is how it's run. If you go down there and you ask the people that are there or that have been there, they're going to tell you the same thing that I'm telling you. When they threw everybody out last year and started new, it's the same thing that went on last year. It's going on now. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Myers.
Move the item, Chairman.
Further public? Have a motion by Commissioner Pendergrass, second by Commissioner Sandelli. Is further discussion on the subject? Is there objection to it? Show it passing without objection. Mr. Staff, number 12.
This item is to accept over $300,000 in community service block grant funds, and I'd like to ask Mr. Mora to address this item.
Back to you, Mr. Mora.
Thank you, Mr. Harner. This is $300,837 in community service block grant money. The funds are intended to be used for housing stabilization for those financially impacted by COVID-19 with rent and mortgage assistance. These are an ongoing allocation of Lee County, and it's based on the county's poverty level. Human Veteran Services estimates that approximately 350 households will be assisted with these funds.
Questions of our staff?
The item.
I have a motion by Commissioner Manning, a second by Commissioner Pendergrass. Is there public input on this item about a community service block grant, the favorite CDBGs? Back to the commission. Is there objection to the motion? Show it adopted without objection. Does that do our consent?
You have two more.
The 20 and 21? Yeah, I was going to pull those myself because I need to understand mobility on demand. Who's going to take this for us? You are.
Thank you, Commissioner. This item is to approve the Florida Department of Transportation Mobility on Demand Service Grant application, and I'd like to ask Robert Cody to come up and speak to this item, please.
Mr. Cody, this is an application for grant funds, correct?
Correct. Good
And if we get it, then we will do what?
All right, good morning, Commissioners, County Admin. If we get the Mobility on Demand grant, this will, one, reduce transportation's financial impact from a budgetary standpoint with regards to our Route 515 in Lehigh Acres. The Route 515 covers about a 13-mile area. If we do Mobility on Demand, it expands that to 42 miles within the Lehigh area, which is in need of additional transit services. So one, we expand service area, and two, we have a cost savings.
Now, look, that sounds like what I hear from government all the time. We're going to triple the service area, triple it, and we're going to save money at the same time. Let me in on your secret here. How do we do that?
We're reducing the size of the bus. Right now, you have a fixed route bus, about a 35-foot, the large buses that you see on the roadway. We're going to shrink the size of those vehicles to our cutaways, what you see on our Passport and our ADA services. So they're less to maintain, they're lower on fuel mileage, and they can cover a larger area based on the demand. Mobility on Demand is more so of the individuals who need our services contact transit. It's almost like we're expanding our ADA services, but we're shrinking it down to open it up to the entire public within a corridor.
Shrinking it down to open it up.
Shrinking it down.
That's the double talk that I don't understand.
Okay, shrinking it down. When I say shrinking it down, we're reducing the size of the vehicle.
Shrinking down the vehicle.
The vehicle size.
Opening it up to 3 times the size.
The service area.
Service area.
Because if you look at the infrastructure in Lehigh Acres, it's the roadways. Our buses are too big, too heavy, and they cannot fit on those roadways out in that area. So if we shrink down the size of the vehicle to go to one of our cutaway, our vans, now we can go to a larger service area while maneuvering on the roadways.
Explain to me Mobility on Demand. Who is going to be making that request?
The passenger, the patron, will contact.
Obviously, it would be the passenger, but what typical citizen is that passenger?
It's open to the general public. It's everyone. It's all inclusive.
Not income level, it's not handicapped?
It's not income level. It's open to the general public, but it's a limited service because you only have so many vehicles on the road at one time. So it's not like we're just an Uber or a Lyft. where anyone at any moment can just call and overwhelm the system. However, those who utilize our service, we transport in that particular area currently about 15,000 people per year. In the grand scheme of things, with regards to transit, that's a minor number because we transport 2.9 million in total trips. So if we do about 15,000 currently with our 515 and a 13-mile square radius, we can expand that service and transport those individuals on those cutaways. Did I say too much or too fast?
Any further questions?
Move the item.
Sandelli.
No, I think it's, and we've had some discussions on this, I think this, if you think in terms of a hub and spoke type situation, maybe with the airlines, you know, that's smaller vehicles coming into a central point, and then you offload, if need be, to a larger vehicle to transport from there. It's very efficient. I was also involved in a very similar situation when I was up in Tampa, and this is exactly what the community wanted, was that I need a smaller vehicle to get from my house to here as opposed to going, you know, cross county or something like that. So I think it's well put together and well intended. And I think the bottom line is customer service.
And to piggyback off Commissioner Sandelli, it brings them back into our Route 110. And that's the main road that travels Lee Boulevard.
Do we have members of the public that would like to speak to this item? I have a motion by Commissioner Manning. I have a second by Commissioner Sandelli. Is there further discussion on the item? Is there objection to it? Show it adopted without objection. Now, how are we doing?
Very good. We have one more.
21.
This is to approve the Florida Department of Transportation Park and Ride Facility Grant Application, and I'd like to ask Mr. Cody to speak to this item, please.
Okay, and this works in conjunction with the mobility on demand because, as Commissioner Sandelli so eloquently stated, it's like a hub and spoke because now if we have a ride point of transfer center where individual vehicles can go there and then transfer into our trunk route, which would be our 110 that services the Lehigh Acres area, then now we have a more efficient, frequent service because we're doing mobility on demand in conjunction with our fixed route services. And the two will work symbiotically together with the transfer center off of Williams Road in the center of Lehigh Acres, an area that's continuously growing.
Do we have park and ride in Lehigh now?
No, sir.
Do we have it other places in Lee County?
Yes, sir.
For instance?
Cape Coral Park and Ride off 47 Terrace.
And that's a county facility?
Correct.
In Cape Coral?
We don't own it, but we operate that facility. We have an agreement with Cape Coral.
So this could be, if all falls together perfectly, this could be up and running and available for the public to be used in about?
2023 is our goal.
2023, thank you. Have a motion?
Move the item.
Have a second by Sandelli. Is there public input? I've asked for that, don't have any. Is there further discussion? Is there objection to the motion? Show it adopted without objection. Now, Mr. Harner, how are we doing?
Good, now we're going into public hearing.
Public, we are at the very end now. This is what you guys heard our chairman mention. If there were other items that you'd like to speak to, nope.
We have public hearing.
Oh, I'm sorry, public hearing. I'm thinking public input. Lost my head. Counselor, public hearing.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have previously provided your clerk with proof of publication for your two public hearings this morning. The first public hearing is to approve a petition to vacate an easement that lies between lots 8 and 9 on the platted lot, also referenced as 612 Poinsett Avenue in Lehigh Acres. Mr. Chairman, this is to create a unified building site for a residence. We respectfully request approval following the conduct of your public hearing.
Are there members of the public that like to be heard on this particular issue in Lehigh Acres? Is there a motion by Commissioner Manning, second by Commissioner Pendergrass? Further discussion? Is there objection? Show it adopted without objection. Counselor, back to you.
Thank you, sir. Your next public hearing is likewise a petition to vacate located at 1841 Lindsay Street in Lehigh Acres. Once again, Commissioners, this is to remove an encumbrance and create a unified building site for a single-family residence following your public hearing, we would respectfully request approval.
Are there members of the public here for this particular item? Seeing none, a motion by Commissioner Manning, second by Commissioner Sandelli. Is there further discussion? Is there objection? Show this a vacation adopted without objection. Is that all, Counselor?
Thank you, sir. Yes.
Now, will y'all allow me to go back to the public? No, we're going to take Commissioner items. Where am I at? Commissioner items, you have any? Commissioner Manning?
No.
Commissioner items? Commissioner items? Commissioner appointments?
No.
Commissioner appointments?
Yes, I have one.
You have one? Commissioner Manning, back to you.
Yes, I have a reappointment of Kyle Baracco Jr. to the Executive Regulatory Oversight Committee.
Second.
Second, is there objection? Show it adopted without objection. Thank you, Commissioner. I have one that the chairman asked me to make on his behalf. We have always a member of the beach, a resident of the beach that serves on the Tourist Development Council, and he has recommended Rexanne Hossafrost. And I need a motion to that effect by Commissioner Sandelli, a second by Commissioner Pendergrass. Is there objection? Show it adopted without objection. And yes, the chairman also asked me to bring up an item. Which one of you guys is the representative to the county coalition group that meets in Okeechobee? I was it for 2 or 3 years. Somebody else is. But at any rate, they have a very modest budget that we have supported in the past year. It's due for renewal. It's a massive $1,000. I need a motion to approve the county coalition. I have that $1,000 approval by Commissioner Manning, a second by Commissioner Pendergrass. Is there a discussion? Is there public input? Is there objection? Show it adopted without objection. Thank you very much. Now, can I go to, because we've done, you got any more, Counselor?
No, sir. Thank you.
Any more? Yes. Back to County Manager.
Yes, I'd like to ask Mr. Winton to speak to us about the revenue status update.
Well, thank you, Mr. Winton. You've been hanging out there nervously, pacing back and forth, and here's your chance.
I want to give you a quick update on what we're doing from a financial standpoint to respond to the COVID-19 virus. As we all know, there's going to be some significant short-term as well as long-term impacts based on what is happening with the economy. But just first, on an optimistic note, the county is in a better position to respond than we were before the Great Recession for a number of reasons. We have a better understanding of both departmental and fund budgets based on the policies put in place during the last 6 years. Revenue forecasting and budget prediction models are much more sophisticated and longer term in nature, and you all see that during your budget workshops when we come to you during the afternoon workshops. A number of the county's directors and fiscal managers were here during the recession and are experienced in plans to cut costs and maintain services. And the county also has healthy reserves, not just in the general fund, but in other fund reserves. So we began taking actions in mid-March, and I'll go through just a few. On March 22nd, we instituted a hiring freeze shortly after we began closing facilities. We're working closely with fiscal managers to bring in submitted budgets for the coming year that are either flat or reduced. We're reviewing the necessity of large purchases given current circumstances. And as you'll see on this chart, we're tracking revenue losses. This is for a combination of being able to accurately forecast our revenues in the future to match them with expenses, and also if through the CARES Act or amendments to it, if we're able to recover money from lost revenues, we will have that data available. One short-term and longer-term goal is to maintain a viable capital improvement program because the private sector builds most of the county's infrastructure, and that program acts as at least one economic stimulus during the economic downturn. And just a few discussion points about these losses that you see. This is about through mid-April. There are some revenues that we won't have a good understanding of what the reductions are until later this week, primarily revenue sharing from the state. But these losses are a combination of reduced activity, so for instance, fewer people going through the tolls, and the county suspending certain fees and charges. So for example, suspend.
Wait. Fewer people going through the tolls. We're not charging tolls.
We're not charging cash tolls.
It's toll by plate.
Toll by plate.
Oh, okay.
But because of because of people staying at home and in place,
okay, so
you
it
have
is a
you have less
substantial
activity.
reduction.
Correct. And then the county suspending certain fees and charges, such as suspending bus fares, suspending parking fees at parks, boat ramp fees, et cetera. One thing, this adds up to a $5.6 million number, but as we go forward, what I want the board to understand is that these do not all reside in the same fund. You know, we have the general fund, but we also have enterprise funds such as solid waste, utilities, tolls. We have special revenue funds like the Visitor and Convention Bureau, transit, et cetera. So these numbers are spread throughout the funds, and we need to track with each fund what the impact is going to be, because some revenues are more elastic than others. And then going forward, we'll closely monitor the impacts on each fund so we're financially sustainable as we move forward. With that, I'll open up for any questions.
Questions of Mr. Winton? There's no action required by the commission at this time, notwithstanding the substantial reductions that you've pointed out to us. We don't need to make any budget adjustments because of that.
No, we will be doing that during the budget process. The departments are in the process of doing that now.
No further questions? Thank you, Mr. Winton. Mr. Harner?
No further items, Commissioner.
You're done, and Counselor is done?
Nothing further, thank you.
Now may I go to the public input? Thank you very much. And thank you for the patience of those of you who have come early and stayed late. This is the part where we're not talking about specific items on the agenda for today, but for anything that troubles your heart that you think your county commission might help you with, you can have your full 3 minutes again. Bring that hat up and reintroduce yourself, sir.
I'm Willie Joe Schottmiller. I'm a human needs advocate and also homeless. I've heard a lot of good things, input from fellow advocates, and we need a safe harbor for people to go. And I'm not just talking during this epidemic. I believe that the stadium would be an ideal place. People offer to volunteer to man things to make it happen. I believe also that the stadium should not be torn down. It should be utilized as a revenue for the city and the nonprofits. We need some type of housing that's always going to be there in an emergency, a place for people to go. There's all kinds of places that could be utilized for affordable housing. You've got the old trailer court on Palm Beach that is a bunch of sites there that could be the mini houses that would be affordable. There's a lot of things that could be done if we will all work together. So with that, I'll turn it over to anybody else. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Others who would like to speak on Lucy? Come introduce yourself for the third time. And you got to go a little further than Mama Lou for the records keeper here.
Lucy Bonsanto Ramirez.
Thank you.
You're welcome, sir.
You got 3 minutes more.
I want to thank you guys for all that you do. I know you guys have your hands full with all these different issues. And before I leave here today, I'd like to again say to you, if you need somebody to oversee something immediately, I will do that for you.
Lou's my girl, yes.
Absolutely. And Karen, I believe that you will back me on that, as well as Jeannie Turner and Carrie, the other one that spoke, and several of our organizations. I know the people in the Sheriff's Department that will help on a volunteer basis for security purposes. I think it could be done decently and in order. I don't think it's a long-term fix, but for this immediate issue, so that all the different ministries and secular groups and restaurants and people in our community that are going out there and helping people to protect and ensure their safety, as well as meet the needs of those that are really in need, and to be able to vet and decide in that area, it takes experience, and I would do that for all of you.
Well, thank you.
Absolutely. And if you would call me, my number is 239-321-1543, and I will help, even if we just go under the, so many hours a day under the parking area by Centennial Park, that may work. Just a thought.
You guys stay in touch with each other so that
We do.
when we're getting back with you,
We do.
I'm not going to forget you, ma'am. With the white face mask, please.
Thank you. Y'all have a blessed day.
Thank you, Lucy.
Out.
Well, we'll take this lady first while the white face mask is coming up. Could you announce yourself, please? Introduce yourself.
My name is Doris Cortez, and I'm here to talk about reopening the businesses in our county.
Okay.
I ran into a lady the other day. She's a waitress. Her husband is a waiter. They have 2 little children, and with tears in her eyes, she was telling me, I've never had to stand in line and ask for food for my family. We've always provided for ourselves and our 2 children. And she said, it broke my heart. And she said, it made me feel so incompetent that I could not take care of my family anymore. She is just one of many in Lee County. We need to open the businesses. And I'd like to read a letter that I had sent to Commissioner Hammond. And it says, I am 81 years old, and my husband is 94 with a heart condition, COPD, and diabetes. I am writing to ask you and the other commissioners to vote to open businesses in Lee County as soon as possible. Having a task force or opening beaches and opening parks does not save businesses, and it does not put people back to work. A friend of mine saved and dreamed of opening a senior care daycare center. 2 years ago, she was able to do this. This weekend, I was told that she will not be able to reopen it because of the fact that she does not have the money to reopen it, and she has not been able to get a loan. Please vote to open businesses as soon as possible, not sometime in May. We don't need a task force. We need people back to work. We need our businesses saved. This is the heart and soul of Lee County, is our everyday working people and the people that own small businesses. And the longer we don't have them open, the more of them we're going to lose. And I think it's sad. As a senior citizen who is in the most vulnerable age group, I say the cure is worse than what's going on. I mean, this is not helping our county. It's not helping our citizens. And I please plead with you to get things open. Thank you.
Thank you, Doris, very much. Now, yes, ma'am, I'm sorry. Now, you know my rules.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak. My name is Ellen Hilton, and I live on 2825 Palm Beach Boulevard in Fort Myers.
Thank you, Ms. Hilton.
First of all, I came rather disappointed. I've been heartened by some of the attitudes I've seen from some of the leaders. This idea of finding people trespassing and somehow tagging them, and to me this is harassment, and it comes very close to violating the Civil Rights Act, and I wouldn't want to see that. I think I would ask that at least for this period of time, while we're trying to find a solution, even though you're not the city of Fort Myers, you ask both the city and the sheriff's department to back off on asking people to move from public places when they're not congregated, but just being. I think, where are they going to go? And I would also ask that you start a a joint task force. The lady over here, the pharmacist back here, Ms. Miller, whom I don't see right now. These are people who have worked very closely with the homeless. And it seems there is money. We don't know where it's going. I would just ask that I was especially heartened by your humaneness, and I would ask that that humaneness carry over and somehow facilitate some kind of working between these people and your county staff to get these things worked out.
Ms. Hilton, thank you for your humaneness and your participation here this morning. Now, the lady with a hand up who seems so nervous that we're going to stop without hearing from her again, please come join us. Are there others that would like to speak? Yes. Whoa, we're not done by a long shot, okay.
Thank you, sir. My name again is Jasmine Phillips Miller, JD. I would like to tell everyone that 2 homeless women were violated, raped. Thank you for listening, and we pray for them.
Thank you, Jasmine, for your additional appearance. Terry? But you got to do it again.
Karen Scott, thank you for your time. There has been some discussion about the stadium being used to shelter the homeless. As a parent and a person with common sense who has to run a budget, I think that is a very fiscally responsible decision because it congregates them in one very large spot. It's scheduled for demolition. It is owned by the county. It would facilitate them being treated more humanely. The Sheriff's Department, Lee County, Fort Myers Police Department are handling them with less mercy than we've seen in the past, to the point of harassment. And when you are told to vacate and to leave, but you have nowhere to go, then you wander around. They end up in very dangerous positions. Having them congregated at the stadium where they could be confined to an area, it eliminates all these other agencies running about trying to serve, and it congregates them in one place. What I'd like to ask is, what is the hesitation on the part of the commission or the city to use that facility to be a temporary emergency shelter? What can we do to move forward with that idea?
We're not going to be able to give you an answer to that, Mr.
Okay.
Scott.
Is that something that can be put forth with the task force?
You're talking about a very complex issue. Earlier, people asked us if we had tried to sell it. We tried for almost 5 years to find a reasonable use for it. We haven't found that yet. The city of Fort Myers has some pretty grand plans that they've gone a long distance to, and they've had constant conversations with us about transferring that ownership back to them. The subject of whether we can do better by providing facilities for the homeless is always available to us, whether or not that utilizes the building that you're talking about.
So we'll discuss that further.
Yeah, that subject needs to be pursued, and I think out of your partnership with Mama Lou,
yep.
We can continue that conversation.
Okay, thank you.
Baseball buildings notwithstanding, one more time.
Dr. Denise Trafficante, Farm D, local pharmacist and community activist.
Trafficante, is that right?
Trafficante,
Okay.
yes. So I've kind of recent to the Fort Myers, Lee County politics. Normally I just go and do what I can for my community and, you know, continue on. I'm always a healthcare advocate. I've been in healthcare over 20 years, and I'm very proud of a lot of the things that I've accomplished as a healthcare advocate. But when it comes to exactly why there is so much finger pointing in this whole epidemic, homeless, overlooking, lack of services, I'm really stumped. Cecil, I've talked with you online on a number of topics, articles. I share a lot of things that come from my hometown of Buffalo, New York, where the county executives have been able to say, you know what, we're getting COVID-19 funding. We're going to go to the local colleges. They went to Erie Community College, which is very similar to FSW, and they said, hey, since you guys are shut down, we're going to rent your gym. We're going to rent your stadium, and we're going to make that eligible for the homeless, so we can actually lot out the lines on the floor and space them out according to the CDC recommendations. We're going to have locker rooms and facilities in which we can keep them cleansed, we can keep them, you know, properly sheltered from the elements, so on and so forth. And then they got with the community cooperatives that were actually doing meals and feeding and such, and they were able to do those kind of things. When I mention that to different officials, they say, oh, it's not the city of Fort Myers, that's the county. The county says that's not the county's directive, that's the city of Fort Myers. At this point, we need to say we're human beings looking after other human beings. And when does the county not include the city? When does the county not supersede the city? When is it going to be time that as county officials, you say the city of Fort Myers is within Lee County and we need to step up and do something for the constituents within that city? Because I'll tell you what, a lot of these people, they might not have a home, but they do have an ID and they do have a signature for voter registration. And it is time for their voices to be heard. And if there is not an elected official that is willing to step up for them, then maybe we need to start looking at who is going to step up for them. Who is going to make that difference? Who got into these chairs and into these positions because they actually care about the least? Not just the richest, not just the ones that they see at all the fundraisers, but the ones that all this funding is really meant to be for. Thank you.
You know the clapping rule. Are there others that would like to speak to us on any subject close to their heart in the blue shirt? Your name and address, please.
My name is Robert Herbert Hoover Hill II. I'm a Vietnam veteran. I only served our country and several commendations for my service to this country. And we're at war, not just there, but here. And unfortunately, I hate to say it, but blessedly, thanks to COVID, we finally got some identification and help and recognition for the homeless. And it's sad that it took this to bring some sort of recognition to us. I mean, why didn't we have Port-au-Sands 5-10 years ago? Why weren't they doing these things for the homeless out here 10 years ago? I was homeless at one point in time. I'm an activist, and I have a nonprofit. And there are other groups out here who have nonprofits, but there are other organizations, and there's collusion, conspiracy, and other things that are going on. You have these organizations, and I hate to say it, okay, we have the Homeless Coalition. Okay, we have Mr. Mercado, you mentioned him. I cruise this city from the mall all the way down back in the neighborhoods and check and try to coordinate with the homeless and other people out here. I've been homeless in the streets too. I reported to Mr. Mercado yesterday that the Port-au-Sands across from the racetrack were not in compliance. An hour later, 2 hours later, all of a sudden I get a text, and all of a sudden there's toilet paper in the Port-au-Sands and all. So these things are going on. The Centennial Park, you put Port-au-Sands over, those Port-au-Sands were out there before they even made the announcement that they were going to be done. That was not to facilitate the homeless, it was to facilitate the people who are living in those high-rises and those yachts that are going back and forth. They've got to look out for us out here, and I really feel that they should do something. You have the right hand and the left hand not know what it's doing. You have the city commission, you have the county, and you have the city. Why can't you guys, I mean, we have to go over here to speak to the county, we have to go over here to speak to the city. Why can't we have a representative here at the same time so we can work this out together instead of being separated, apart from each other? I agree with everybody that they're saying about the stadium or some sort of area, but another thing that has to be taken in consideration, location, location, location. Homeless cannot be all the way out on Ortez where triage is. And triage is, and I've been in triage myself. And they have empty beds, and they're claiming that the beds are full, and they're throwing people out on the streets. They are right about that. Notification for the homeless. They don't all have pamphlets to hand out. You have an Amber Alert. Why can't we have some sort of alert for the homeless? You have these signs that are up there. Put the signs out there for to notify the homeless as to what's going on in the community, where they can go, and what can be done. I would like to see everybody come together in some sort of task force.
Thank you, Robert. Your 3 minutes up. Appreciate your advocacy. Yes, sir, come forward. Welcome back, but you can introduce yourself once more.
Keith Campbell, PTSD Awareness Summit, veteran advocate, homeless advocate. I've been here 15 years. The problem that we're all talking about today, about the funding, it's been going on for 15 years. This is before some of you guys are in your position. But it's been the same groups that are in that same category getting those monies. I support what Karen said, and I have no problem sitting on any board to sit there and dissect every penny that's been coming in this county and not being used properly. I'm also a business owner, and I've been a business advocate for many years, over 30 years in the business. I'd be more than happy to sit with you guys, because when I sat and spoke with you guys last Friday, all I heard was talk. And you guys are proud about those 65 beds over 10 years. That's sad. I've placed more than 65 people in my 15 years in this county. I've helped more veterans get their benefits because you guys are not doing your job. And I hate to I'll be calling you guys out with this, but it is a little bit sickening to hear this and to take COVID to come out and bring this out. Florida's a great place to live. That's why I moved here. I love this county. I love being here. But if we're not taking care of the ones that really did it for us, like our veterans, who are constantly fighting for their benefits, they're killing themselves at our local VA, and nobody gave 2 squats about it. I called that out 5 years ago it was going to happen. It's still happening every day. 22 of them a day are killing themselves. I'm getting 5 phone calls, the text messages or something a day, helping somebody off that edge. With this going on now, it's even more. We try to open up a recovery center here. City of Fort Myers tried to stop that from happening. I had to reach out to Cecil and get Cecil out there, because Cecil knew the area. He knew what's needed. Cecil got the ball rolling on it to get some of the county commissioners in the city behind it. We shouldn't be doing that. Those are resources that are going to help you guys, human resources, make it a little bit easier, get us all involved. I think we know what we're doing as nonprofits. 15 years of nonprofit service in this community, none of them's going bankrupt, and none of them have been questioned as far as where the funding's going. Where our money is going right now, $4 million a year, there's a lot of questions. A lot of questions. And as far as the harassment to the homeless, let's get this straight. It's not Lee County Sheriffs. I'm in contact with them all the time. It's Fort Myers PD, and they're the ones that started it last week. As soon as the mayor resigned, the harassment started. That came from city council or it came from the chief. At this point, a lot of resignations need to stop being asked for at city level and any other level who don't want to step up. And with voting around the corner, you bet I'm going to be pushing for resignations because we need actions.
Thank you, Mr. Campbell. Yes, ma'am. Once more.
Yes, Carrie Constantine with Blankets and Blessings. I just want to say our nonprofit is all volunteers, and we don't get funding from anybody, just friends. And we're the ones that actually came up and put Suzette in housing when everybody else had failed her. And she's being moved in right now. But in Lee County, we have a lot of agencies receiving funding with little to show for it. But at the same time, Charlotte County restructured their social service departments, and in the last 4 years have eliminated all their veteran homelessness, and they've eliminated 90% of their chronic homelessness in 4 years. It's because they restructured all their systems, and they're structured much differently than how Lee County is structured. We really need to look at other areas that are more successful and have a track record, and see what they're doing right and try to implement those changes in our area. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Constantine. Are there others that need to share something with your county commission? Yes, ma'am.
Bonnie Myers, I really thank you guys for giving us the opportunity to speak. I really pray to God seriously that you will do something. I heard you say that it was a complex matter with the ballpark and so on and so on. Again, I pray to God that it's not so complex, that this is still going on when COVID is over, because they need help now. They can't wait. I mean, it's not a hard solution. If someone like me and the rest of us that are out here that are not well educated, we just have common sense, can figure out a solution, and it's easy, and the funds are there, okay? The funds are there. It's a simple solution. You need to listen to the nonprofits. You need to listen to the homeless people that know how it works and how it can be solved. Please jump on it. Just jump on it. No more complex this, complex that. You can't do that. These people's lives are on the line. And I agree with that lady there. If one of you guys would just take the time and be homeless for a week and see how you do. When you're toting your stuff all around Lee County in the heat, and you don't expect to be homeless, nobody does. I didn't. I was surprised that I ended there, okay? Tote your stuff around. See what it's like to try to find a drink of water when it's really hot outside. You can't find shade, okay? Then you would move faster on making these decisions when the funds are there. And one last thing. I read an article a few months ago. You sent it to me. The $10 million that was allocated for homelessness that was supposed to solve it within 10 years, where'd that money go? Who do I find out to ask for an audit? I really want to know where the money went to.
I don't know what 10 million you're referring to.
It was went to Human Services?
You got to give us a little bit.
I will look up the article. If you'll tell me who I can contact, I will give you the article with the information there. I want to know where the money went to. It was a plan. There was $10 million.
To Terry and Lucy.
It was allocated.
Talking with this good gentleman down here.
Okay, I will. Okay, thank you very much.
Okay, ma'am, if you've already spoken, you can't speak again. No, you can't speak again. You're not recognized, ma'am. We've been real nice to everybody, and you've had 3 opportunities. Thank you. Thank you for your kind comments, and you're sincere. Have you already spoken, sir? I thought. Yes? Have you spoken, ma'am? Well, come forward. Is there anyone else who has not spoken on matters of your heart to the commission? I think this has been one of the best public input meetings we've had in a long, long time, and we've touched on issues that are very delicate and touchy. And that's a good thing. So yes, ma'am, your name, please.
My name is Patricia Roz. I am a citizen of Lee County and have been for many years. And first of all, as much as I respect and adore Bonnie, I don't think she was right in thanking you for listening, because that is your job. And up until now, it has not been done. Look at the homeless population. We talk about walking a mile in someone's shoes. Oh, excuse me, I just get so angry. Walk a mile in someone's shoes, and in order to do that, you've got to take off your own shoes first. There is no representation for homeless people. There is no listening. These are human beings, intelligent, competent, capable. Many have found themselves in a rotten spot, and that spot and that hole just goes deeper and deeper and deeper. We ought not to be patting ourselves on the back for doing anything, because that was, bottom line, that's what we're supposed to do. If we need to do our fancy fundraisers, our cocktail parties, dress in really nice suits, all of you looking really good. You know, there's more to this than the show. And I am, as a taxpayer, as a college professor, as a mother, as a grandmother, as a citizen, I am just disgusted. We've got to do better.
Thank you for your input. Yes, sir, I keep looking at you, but have you spoken in this part of the meeting before? You can't do it again. Thank you very much. I think we have had a good meeting, a good input, and there's going to be follow-up on this, and we're going to be meeting with your representatives. Yes, ma'am. Did you just appeared? Well, stand up here. And your name, please?
Suzanne Ostrander. Some of the reason people are out here homeless, 120 days will let you know something. If somebody is
Stand a little closer to the microphone.
cell phone operator, almost T-boned me, but I got good peripheral vision, and my brain said turn left, and so I did.
Okay, now
I just got a broken wrist from it. You hear 120 days,
We're sorry
we'll let you
about
know
that,
something.
but
That's
just dressing.
but that's why I've been homeless. Plus taking care of a guy that hit by a Greyhound bus. Greyhound should have stepped up and took care of that man right off the bat.
Okay.
They need to change some of these laws, because that's why some of these people are out here homeless, especially our veterans.
Thank you very
We're
much.
getting, you know, just people selling the carpet or something. I don't know, it's sad.
Thank you.
It really is.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen,